Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I got an update for you on my GarbAugust reads, and I have read 3 books so far for GarbAugust, and I attempted to read a 4th one. The first 3 that I read were really good. Okay, so the first one is not particularly good, but I enjoyed it. The second one I couldn't put down. The third one, I felt like I needed to smoke a cigarette after I read it. I quit smoking 12 years ago. It was the best thing I ever did. Don't even know why I started. But anyway, so the 4th one was just trashy beyond belief. And it's a true story. So the first book is Carnivore by Leigh Clarke. And I'm almost certain this is a pseudonym for someone, but I don't know who. I thought it was a pseudonym for Dean Koontz, but it's not. I think he did have a pseudonym that was Leigh something. So this is just like the cover says, or the cover illustration. There is a T-Rex terrorizing an Antarctic camp. So there's a lab set up down in Antarctica, and they are searching for places to dump toxic waste. And now that's not why they're there officially. But they find an egg. They find a T-Rex egg, and in the beginning we are let in on how this egg got to be there, and it got frozen, and it is still biologically viable. And so the guy who is running this camp, this lab, he wants to make a lot of money off of it, apparently. There's some problems with this book. I'll get into them in a second. And they put the toxic waste around this egg, and the toxic waste increases the speed of the growth of this embryo, and it hatches in a couple of days, and then it starts to grow very large, and it starts to eat people. So there is a lady who works for the EPA, and I think it was the EPA. It was a government organization like the EPA, and she is there, and this guy running this camp realizes, I guess, the motives behind the villain in this are really sketchy and not ever explained. Like at one point, one of the other characters says, "Oh, you're doing this for money," and the guy says, "There's a lot of money in that," and that is the only explanation of his motive for basically taking over this lab and forcing everybody to do his will. And things in this book just happen to happen. Like, the detail is not very high, and one thing happens, like they find the egg, and then they put the egg in the room with the radioactive waste, and then the little creature hatches, and at the same time one of the guys who is working at this lab starts to catch feelings for the EPA lady, and she starts to catch feelings for him, even though they don't get along and they don't like each other at the first. But it's just a jump from one scene to another, to another, to another, to another. And, so many people get eaten in this book by this T-Rex that it gets old. And it gets old. Like, one guy gets eaten. And these are people we've never been introduced to. We're not told how many people work at this lab. We're not told their names. They just appear to be eaten. Like, oh, that's Bill from the engine room, and it eats him, And it was a good read, though. I know that makes it sound terrible, but it was really enjoyable. It was just what I needed. I'd been in a bit of a slump, and this was just fun. It wasn't particularly written well. The characters were as flat as cardboard. There's no real character development or anything like that. And it's completely unrealistic. It's kind of like one of those 50s movies, where the radioactive waste makes the ant grow to like 7 stories tall or whatever. And it was just fun. It's never going to win an award, but it was definitely fun. And the next book, I was enthralled by this. I didn't want to put it down. I carried it with me everywhere. And it's Meg by Steve Alten, or Alten. And I thought this would be horrendously bad. Now this is the revised and expanded edition from 2015. This came out before the movie. And now that still, I don't understand because the picture there is from the movie, if I remember right. Unless it's just very similar. I saw the movie a few years ago and I don't remember it particularly well. I think Jason Statham was in it, right? But I don't remember it almost at all. I remember one scene where there's like an underwater glass thing and the Meg comes up and whacks it. I do remember that, but I'm pretty sure that the movie is very, very different from this book. So in some ways it's alike. So it starts out in the beginning, and there's a guy named Jonas, and he's a pilot of this tiny submersible. And they are going down, not into the Marianas Trench, but very near it. Like he never gets to the bottom. So it starts out with a novella that Steve Alten had written afterwards. And he wanted to bring these two things together, but he rewrote the book because it wasn't, he wrote this in the 90s, but looking at it from that perspective of all these years, he thought, well, I want to bring this up to my current abilities, right? And so we get this story of Jonas down in this little sub with these other two scientists, and they encounter the megalodon, and it scares him, and it attacks their sub, and two of the scientists dies, and Jonas barely survives, and that is how he loses his career. And he's been forced down into this. He didn't want to go. He's been doing this several times. He's completely exhausted to the point where he's kind of starting to zone in and out and hallucinate. And so even though there's a tooth stuck in the sub, the captain who ordered him down throws it overboard and basically ruins his career and everything. And people think, he has to go to the mental institution for a few months he's dishonorably discharged from the military. And later on, he becomes a professor. He's studying megalodons because he's convinced that what he saw was not a hallucination, but he sort of thinks that maybe it was. His wife thinks it was. His wife is really, really, really mad at him because he set back her career, and she was a model, and then she was like a journalist, and she's really mad at him for not being this this little submersible captain anymore with all these accolades and all the glory and the attention. And she has become this really scummy news presenter who is working her way up to being an anchor. And so she'll do anything for a story. And this is all in the very beginning, by the way. I'm not, no spoilers, but she's a bad person. And he finds out very early into this novel that she's cheating on him with his best friend from college, who has become this multimillionaire, who has a big yacht, and he is described as he's become like this absent-minded professor who's just so focused on proving that there are megalodons that he's lost a lot of money and everything, and she's just a bad person though. Like, I don't know. She wants to ruin him. She wants to hurt him. It's not just like she's disappointed in him. She actively is trying to hurt him, to ruin his career, to make him look like a crazy person, and to hurt him, to get revenge on him. And so his friend runs a company, like I can't remember his name, but he is trying to create this giant lagoon for whales to come in and give birth and to be safe from sharks. But to finance this, he has created this chain of sensors in the Marianas Trench that will detect earthquakes, and they are being destroyed, and they don't know why. And they want Jonas to go or at least to oversee this. And his friend's daughter is really mad about this because she has a brother, and her father will let her brother go down in these subs, but he won't let her do it, even though she's fully qualified. And she's really, really mad that she has to come down and get Jonas, and that Jonas is going to be piloting this. And they go down to see what's going on, and of course there are megalodons, right? And they get attacked, and Jonas was right. And so this whole book is them is Jonas trying to get this Meg and stop it somehow, either to put it in the lagoon or to kill it because it has started to attack people, and it's pregnant and it's going to give birth. And now there's Jonas's wife, soon to be ex-wife. She wants the story more than anything, and she's got her millionaire boyfriend, and they are going out to track down this Meg so she can get the story. And there are people who want to kill it. There are people who, oh, it's just, I mean, I didn't want to put it down. It's exciting, and he gives us details, and he treats this Meg like it's a real animal. It's not supernatural. It's not, it's just a giant shark. All it wants to do is eat and make little baby sharks, right? That's all it wants to do. That's it. And I just thought it was great. I just loved it. I carried it everywhere. I didn't want to put it down. I was so blown away by how much I enjoyed this book, and I'm really glad that I read Meg. It was really good. Yeah. So the next book I read was a dirty Western, Longarm and the Snake Dancers. So the last Longarm I read was called Longarm and the Mexican Lineup, and it had a couple of sex scenes in it, but they weren't like, this book gets dirty. Okay, and it goes on for page after page, and it is so dirty that it is hilarious. Like, I can't read aloud. I wish that I could. I mean, I guess I could, but some of the things that happen in this. So Longarm is on a train, and he's heading into Arizona because so this is in the late 1800s, and on the Navajo reservation, so the Navajo and Hopi reservations are very close to one another. There is a man from I think it was called the Indian Bureau at the time. He is like the law. And now there are Navajo police. So if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I really love Tony Hillerman's mysteries, his Jim Chee and Joe Leaphorn novels. I love those, and they take place basically in the same area, sort of, that this takes place in. And so it was kind of familiar to me. And so there are people who are being killed on this reservation, and they're both Native Americans and they're white people, and it seems like they're being bitten by rattlesnakes, but it just doesn't sit right. And so they've sent for Longarm, or they've sent for a marshal, right? And they sent Longarm. Of course they sent Longarm. In this book, by the way, we get to learn, we learn why Longarm is called Longarm. And if you'll remember, when I picked up these books about 2 months ago, I said that I'm afraid of finding out why Longarm is called Longarm. Well, it's not just because he's the long arm of the law. So he meets a woman on this train, and she runs a trading post, and they hook up, and it's several pages of some very explicit sex. So Longarm and a Navajo policeman get captured by the Hopi because they are going to do their snake dance, so they are out gathering rattlesnakes. And they don't have a very good relationship with the Navajo. Like, they've been fighting for many, many, many years. And so when they find a white dude and a Navajo on their land, they think that they are spying on their snake dance. And they get taken in, and there is a tribal council who gets together and determines that, okay, well, these murders, or if that's what they are making us look bad too, and we don't want this to happen because the U.S. government will come in here and tear everything up and kill some of us, and we just don't want this. So we're going to send one of the chief's sons with Longarm and the Navajo policeman, and they go out and start investigating these murders. And so at one point, Longarm gets injured, and there's a Native American woman, and she takes care of him while he's going through these I don't want to tell you too much, but he's been injured, and she takes care of him for several days. And then immediately after that, they get embroiled in some hot and steamy relations, and it is steamy. It is very explicit. And then Longarm meets somebody else, and later on they get into some very explicit scenes. And it was hilarious, like the way it was described, like some of the things they say to each other are just like I laughed so hard, like, but it was very, very spicy. And this was like reading a Penthouse forum, but I enjoyed it. I don't, I liked the whole book. If those scenes hadn't been there, I'd have been just fine with it too. Um, I enjoyed this book. Okay, so, as you might imagine, Longarm solves the mystery and saves the day, and he goes on to have like 200 or 300 other adventures. Actually, I think there are 500 books in the Longarm series, something like 500 books. So he goes on to have 450 other adventures. So this next one is a true trashy story and told in a very trashy way. It is Hellfire, the Jerry Lee Lewis story. I've had this for about a year, and I've been just kind of picking through it here and there and reading selections of it. And I thought, hey, GarbAugust is the time to read this trashy biography. And I was reading it. I made it about 20 pages in, and I was thinking to myself, like, why am I reading this? Like, why do I care, first of all, what Jerry Lee Lewis got up to? Second of all, this is super trashy and dirty and told in the strangest way. And, I like Jerry Lee's music. I always have. And he had an interesting life, right? But he was also a bigamist twice, from what I remember. He married his 12-year-old cousin, his 13-year-old cousin. He met her when she was 12. He may have murdered one of his wives in the 80s. He drank a lot. He basically grew up in and out of whorehouses. He did a lot of pills. He liked to shoot his guns indoors. He had that old Southern casual racist vibe. Yeah, and this book is just, and of course he was cousins with Jimmy Swaggart and with Mickey Gilley, and this book is told in a super trashy way. Yeah, I think I get it. I think what I'm trying to say is I get it, right? Bigamy, marrying his 13-year-old cousin, drunkenness, drugs, casual racism, etc., etc. And it's told in like this wild sun, southern way. And it's just too much. It's just overwhelming. And I'd rather just listen to the man's music and try not to think about his life, if you want the truth. Okay, so that is my GarbAugust update. And, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these books. Do you think I should try Hellfire again? I might. But I really don't. I don't think I will. But anyway, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll be back soon with another GarbAugust update. Oh yes, before we wrap up, I want to say that I forgot to mention that I actually read Carnivore on the 30th of June, or the 30th of July, and the 31st of July. So it was a little bit of a pre-gaming thing. I don't know if this translates into other cultures, but in the United States, when we pre-game, it means that we drink before we go to the party, we drink before we go to the bar, we drink before we go to the football game. So it's kind of a trashy activity in and of itself. So that was my my pre-game for GarbAugust. I just couldn't wait anymore. I had this stack of books right here, and I was thinking like, I really, really want to read one of those. And I really wanted to read Meg, but I saved Meg for GarbAugust. And that was, Carnivore was my pre-game. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.